This is 3.3, the distributive property. Very important concept in algebra. And so we're going to do this in 2 parts. And this will be part 1, talking about distributive property. Here is the first example. As you can see, what we have, I'm going to make this big. You have parentheses. So you have some parentheses here, like that. And when you have parentheses like that, it means that is one unit, all one thing. And then on the outside, right next to it, is you have this negative 1/3. And when something is right next to a parentheses like that, it means that you're going to multiply it. You're going to multiply that to everything within the parentheses. So you're going to multiply this negative 1/3 to that, and you're going to multiply the negative 1/3 to the negative 6. So if we look here, when they took this and multiplied it to that, it looks like this. And then they multiplied this right here to this 6 and kept the minus in there. So then the minus goes right there, and negative 1/3 times 6. Okay? Then when you do that, negative 1/3 times 3n is negative 1n. So that is this right here. Negative 1/3 times 6 is negative 2, which is right there. You bring the minus down, and you have a negative n minus a negative 2, which you can just add the opposite. Means it's a negative n plus 2. Okay. There's another example, B, where you're going to multiply this 5 to negative x and this 5 to 3y, and then put those together and see what you get. Okay? I'm going to do the try-its and show you how I like to do this. Number 1. It is negative 1 x plus 9. I always think if I could do something in the parentheses, I'm going to do it, but we don't have like terms, so we can't put those together. So we're going to distribute this negative 1 to this and to this. And I just say there's 2 things. There's a x here, and there's a positive 9. So negative 1 times x is negative x. Negative 1 times negative 9, or negative 1 times positive 9 is negative 9. And so to distribute negative 1 to parentheses x plus 9, you're going to get a negative x minus 9. Let's do number 2. 2/3, and then you have a minus 3z, or negative 3z, and minus 6, or a negative 6. So we need to take this times this, and this times this. So 2/3 times negative 3. 2/3 times negative 3. I'm going to put that over 1, 3z. So 2 times negative 3, negative 6. 3 times 1 is 3. And negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. So that is negative 2z. And then 2/3 times negative 6. That would be a negative 12 over 3, which is a negative 4. And so I get negative 2z minus 4. Next one. Negative 1.5, parentheses, 8m minus n. So I need to take this times this, and that times that. Okay, negative 1.5 times 8 is 12, a negative 12, and the m comes along with it. And then a negative 1.5 times a negative n gets me a positive 1.5, oops, m, not n, n, not m. That should be an n. And they're not the same variable, so I can't put them together. Okay, and that is my answer. Here's another example of simplifying an expression using the distributive property. Here's where you have negative 3, and then you have 3 things in the parentheses. So you have to do it times negative 1, times positive 2x, and times positive 7. Now there's 2 ways to do this. You could do the negative 3 times all 3 of those terms, and then put the like things together. Or you can combine the like terms in the parentheses first. Okay, I'm going to show you the 2 different ways. The first one, they did negative 3 times negative 1 plus negative 3 times 2x plus negative 3 times 7. So they did them all. They did this negative 3 times all 3 terms. And what you get is you get a 3 plus negative 6x plus negative 21. Now you can combine this with this because they're like terms. So you get a negative 6x minus 18. The way I prefer to do it is I prefer to combine terms before I do the distributing property. So I see in my parentheses here, I see that I have a 7 and a negative 1. Those are like terms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that's negative 3, parentheses, I'll keep the 2x like that, and then negative 1 and a positive 7 is plus 6. And then I distribute it to all parts. And I get negative 6x minus 18. Okay? Let's do a couple try-its. So I have 2 parentheses, negative 3s plus 1 minus 5. I see that these are like terms. So if I do, it's going to be 2 parentheses, negative 3s. And then if I have 1 minus 5, that's a negative 4 or minus 4. Okay. Now I just do this times this part and that times that part. 2 times negative 3s is negative 6s. And 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. And so I get negative 6s minus 8. Number 5. I have a negative 3 halves a minus 4 minus 2a. I see that I have an a here and a minus 2a. I'm going to put those together. If I have a negative 2a and I have a positive a, that's going to take one of those a's away from the negative 2a. So now I have a negative 4, and it's just a minus 1a, or just minus a, times negative 3 halves. Now I have my two parts. I put the combined, put the like terms together. Negative 3 halves times negative 4. That's going to get me a positive. It's going to be 12 over 2, which is 6. So 6, and then negative 3 halves times negative 1a. That's going to get me a negative 3 halves a. And it's not negative because it's a negative times a negative, so it's a positive. So it's plus 3 halves a. Or make that into a mixed number, it'd be 6 plus 1 1/2 a. All right, we are going to keep working on simplifying expressions using distributive property. But sometimes you might have a distributive property, which would, this looks like you need to distribute that negative 1/2 to both parts. And then you have a plus 2n. PEMDAS tells us that you do all your multiplication first. And because distributive property is multiplication, you're going to do that first. So you're going to do the 1/2 times 6n, and you're going to do the 1/2 times 4, negative 1/2 times 4, and then you're going to add the 2n at the end. So you get a negative 3n, you get a negative 2, and you get a 2n. And when you put those together, the n's can go together. Negative 3n plus 2n gets you to negative n minus 2. Okay, let me show you by doing some, how I like to work these. So, this first one, I have 3.5 m, and then it's minus 1.5 times m times 10. I see that this is a distributive property. So I'm going to distribute this negative 1.5 to m. So that's negative 1.5 times m, negative 1.5 m. And then I'm going to do the negative 1.5 times negative 10. And that gets me a positive 15. Now I can put these like terms together. And it's 3.5 minus 1.5 is 2m plus 15. Simplest form. Let's do this one right here. This one has a couple different distributive property things going on. So I see that it's 4/5 times this and times that. And then we're going to put that together with that's negative 2 times w, negative 2 times 9. So let's do, it's all multiplication. 4/5 times 10w. So you go 4/5, oops. I'll do this one in red. 4/5 times 10w. That equals 40 over 5w, and you divide that, it gets me 8w. And then 4/5 times negative 5, that gets me negative 20 over 5, which is a negative 4. So that is distributing this one right here. Now let's go to the blue. Negative 2 times w is a negative 2w. And negative 2 plus 9 is a negative 18. Okay, so that is this right here. Now, we're going to put them together. We have this as a term, that as a term, that is a term, that is a term. Let's put our w's together. I have 8w minus 2w. That gets me 6w. And then I have negative 4, and I'm putting that with a negative 18. That gets me a negative 22. Because you're always adding terms together. You're adding terms together. So a negative 4 plus a negative 18 is negative 22. All right, for a little homework, I want you to try these 4 problems, number 9, 10, 11, 12. You can look back in the video. You can look in your book if you need some examples. But what you're doing is you're distributing what's on the outside of the parentheses with all the terms inside. So see what you can do. We'll go over these tomorrow in class.